Right now to a Fox News alert. Police searching the home of the second suspect arrested overnight in connection to the London subway attack.
This after spending hours raiding a different home that could also be connected to the first suspect. A lot happening overnight. Ellison Barber joins us now live from Washington, D.C. with the very latest. Ellison, good morning.
Good morning to all of you. Right, that's right. Police are raiding a home right now, and they raided one yesterday in Surrey, and police say they're still searching that home today. That raid came shortly after police arrested an 18-year-old in the departure area at the port of Dover. Sky News and the BBC report that the first house belongs to an elderly couple who fostered more than 250 children over the course of 40 years, some refugees. British police made their second arrest of this investigation around midnight local time. Neither suspects have been publicly identified by police. Police are only saying they're men, 18 and 21 years old. Both are being held under a section of the Terrorism Act that allows police to arrest and question a person suspected of terrorism without charging them. The terror threat level in the UK remains at critical. That means an attack could be imminent. Yeah. Abby, Pete, Todd.
Very frightening stuff.
Thanks,
Ellison Barber, thank you so much.
Thanks,
all right, we now want to bring in Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president. Kellyanne, good to see you. Happy Sunday.
Good morning. Same to you.
All right. First off, everything going on with terror, the latest attack in London. You know, the president was tweeting right when this was breaking here on the couch, and he was saying we've got to get tougher, we've got to get stronger, we've got to get proactive, we've got to get nasty. Some criticism he got from Theresa May about jumping the gun, jumping to conclusions before this investigation is even done. But as you know, this is the rhetoric we've heard from him from day one.
Yes, well, these are also the promises that he's made as commander-in-chief and as president of the United States. It's part of how he became president. This country wants a leader who is tough on terrorism, is not going to coddle them, is not going to apologize for America around the world. And you're going to see that through President Trump's leadership at the United Nations General Assembly this week as well, where he will be promoting peace, he will be promoting prosperity, and the president will be promoting sovereignty and accountability. But weave through all three of those major themes and goals will be the reaffirmation of America's global leadership. This is not a president who will apologize for America. This is a president who will affirm America's standing in the world against Iran and North Korea. Certainly, when you look at the deterioration of democracy in Venezuela, you see what's happening in Syria. There are so many issues confronting this country, but confronting the world. And he will talk about peace, prosperity, sovereignty, and accountability.
Kellyanne, you mentioned that speech in front of the UN, a platform that presidents get on annually to sort of address the issues that matter the most. You laid out some of those, including sovereignty, which is he will be criticized for as someone who's saying, listen, countries should have borders in a world where the elites believe that we should live in a borderless world. How do you think that'll be received? And do you feel like these leaders in Europe, say, that have seen this mass migration, are they going to wake up to the reality that they've had a silent invasion in their midst?
President Trump has always been clear on the principle of sovereignty, and that with the nation's sovereignty must come physical borders. He has never changed his mind about construction of the wall. He has never changed his mind about all the different immigration-related policies that he wants Congress to work with him on and put forth. It includes interior enforcement, but it really also includes construction of a southern border wall that shows the world that we respect sovereignty and borders. We have illegal aliens coming over the border, but we also have drugs coming over the border. And a sovereign nation must protect its people, its interests, and foremost. And the president has made this very clear. Expect no difference, no daylight between what he has said in the past and what he will say at the United Nations when it comes to America's sovereignty. The world is not just an idea, a fluid, amorphous, borderless masses that one could call a country. The world is comprised of sovereign nations, and this nation has spent untold amounts of money over decades helping other countries protect their own sovereignty and their own borders. It's high time we did the same here.
Even the UN, he was very critical during the campaign, and a lot of conservatives feel like it's a bit of an outdated concept used against the West. What is his feeling about the UN?
Several things. The president has made clear, actually, for more than a decade. There was a big article this weekend that when now Attorney General, but then Senator Jeff Sessions was in charge of one of the senators in charge of debating what would come of the UN building next. He met with then builder Donald Trump to discuss it. The president has been very clear that the UN like other big operations, big organizations, should be fair to all of its members, should hold them accountable, and should be productive. The U.S. is representing its own interests. They're very happy recently, not once but twice, the UN Security Council sided with U.S. written sanctions against North Korea. Very happy to see that unanimous vote amongst countries that normally don't always agree on much. But in terms of the UN, some look at it as a lethargic institution that's not necessarily responsive to the concerns that a U.S. president would put forth, or this U.S. president would put forth. But he's made very clear, whether it's NATO or the UN, he thinks that everybody should pull their weight. They should pay their dues literally and figuratively. And this president has been very skeptical of the UN-backed Iranian nuclear deal. That hasn't changed. But this is why he's taken the case right to the floor of the UN, and all eyes will be on President Donald Trump in his first major address to UNGA, because they know that he is the one leading the charge against North Korea's increasing nuclear capability and brazenness against other countries' sovereignty in launching their missiles, and also leading the charge against making sure that Iran is held accountable. He has always been very skeptical of that UN-backed nuclear deal. He will be talking about that. He'll also be talking, like I said, about promoting peace and promoting prosperity.
Is he going to use,
Kellyanne, it all runs together.
Is he going to use radical Islamic terror? We've heard him use that phrase a number of times, but that's not used by many leaders at these UN conferences. Do we expect him to go there this time?
He may. Everyone should know that he has many times talked about radical Islamicists, and he has talked about radical Islamic terrorism. That hasn't changed. And really what hasn't changed is this president knowing that America is not a concept, it's a sovereign nation. And he will always put, whether it's in trade imbalance policies or bad deals that have been made as part of our membership in the UN, he will always put Americans, American interests, American allies, and American workers first. You see that as a thread throughout everything that he has said. Don't expect that to change this week at the United Nations. Expect that to be reinforced by our American president.
Kellyanne, as I'm sure you know, the president is up in tweeting. He tweeted this: I spoke with President Moon of South Korea last night, asked him how Rocket Man is doing. Long gas lines forming in North Korea. Too bad. What's your reaction?
The president has made clear that he wants to bring together allies in that region and have, as he and his national security experts have said, all options are on the table. Diplomatic options, military options, economic options, sanctions obviously have been put forth, but he would like South Korea and Japan and others in that area to support the idea that a militarized and nuclear-capable North Korea is not just dangerous to the U.S., it's dangerous to the world. And this is the call that he continues to make. Also, he's been very forthright recently about trade with South Korea and other nations. Everybody is trying to dissect a word here, diagram a sentence, conjugate a verb, should really understand that President Trump is keeping his campaign promises and making good on the vision that he put forth for America, whether it's on trade, whether it's on nuclear-capable nations, whether it's on immigration policy, the border wall, certainly economics. That's why we're going to have tax reform this fall. That is our goal, because you want to repatriate all that money, that wealth that's legally parked all across the world in other nations, and the jobs that have overseas. He wants to bring them back, but that all goes with his trade policy. Yeah. And I think he's just calling upon South Korea to continue to work with the United States against a militarized and nuclear-capable North Korea.
Kellyanne, to those campaign promises, 2 points of clarification this morning. One, does he plan to reauthorize the Iran deal, which is there has been some ambivalence and questions about? And second is there's rumors now about maybe dialing back on getting out of the Paris Climate Accord. Can you clarify the Iran deal and the Paris Climate Accord, two things he ran heavily against as a candidate?
Yes, first, obviously Iran is very much on people's minds, very much on the table, on the agenda this week at the United Nations General Assembly. The president has made clear that he is considering that along with his experts, and that they will announce a decision when it's ready. Secondly, on Paris Climate Accord, I know that somebody representing the EU made some noises that the U.S. may in fact not be withdrawing. The White House, through its official spokeswomen, pushed back immediately, as will I now. So add my voice to the chorus of people saying that the U.S. has always said, the president made clear on June 1st of this year, that he will not stay in there if the terms are not favorable, the re-entry are not favorable to the U.S. This is Donald Trump as candidate, as president-elect, as president.
Are you hearing of new favorable terms, Kellyanne?
I haven't heard any, but that's up to the president and his security advisors and those who advise him most strongly on this. But the president has not changed at all. He has said that we will not re-entry unless those terms are favorable to the U.S. Go back and look at why all of his reasons for withdrawing in the first place. None of that has changed as far as we can see. The fact that the U.S. had to pony up money and others did not. The fact that we were being asked to make concessions and others were not. This president, whether it's trade, immigration, economic policy, tax, regulation, and in this case, the Paris Accords, the climate agreement, if it's not favorable to the U.S. worker, the U.S. interests, then this president is not shy about retreating and withdrawing and making a deal more favorable to the U.S.
All right, Kellyanne, let's talk about Chuck and Nancy for a minute. The president with them in the Oval Office this week, now working with Democrats to get something done on immigration, on DACA. Where is this going? Because you look at where they both stand on immigration. You've been talking this morning about President Trump doubling down on the wall. Many of these Democrats are for amnesty. How do they come together? How is this going to work?
The president has made clear, including this week, that if there's no funding for the wall, no deal can be made. He said it as plainly as possible for all to hear. Those are the president's words. Take it to the bank. Secondly, bipartisanship is a means. It is not an end. It is not a goal or an objective here. It is a vehicle by which you get things done, particularly when you need 60 votes in the Senate for certain matters. So this is what good negotiators and deal makers make. But President Trump's ideas prevailed. Hillary Clinton, the Democrats' ideas failed. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer's ideas, it's Donald Trump's ideas that prevailed. He's the president for a reason. He ran on a program, and it's that program that will be implemented. If we can get Democratic senators to come on board on tax reform, if we can get them to help get the clog of our nominees that are waiting to be confirmed that this president has put forward to the Senate, terrific. If we can get them to negotiate and agree on the president's idea for immigration, interior enforcement, E-Verify, certainly discouraging people from sending their children illegally into this country.
We've seen Chuck and Nancy have yet to act in good faith once with this president. Some in the base are concerned a deal that isn't a good deal is not what they signed up for. Anything you would say to reassure those of the base that feel like maybe there's some wavering here?
I would tell them to put their faith in President Trump. They know that he ran and won specifically on trade imbalances, on immigration policy, and that he will make good on those promises. But look, fundamentally, we have to understand President Trump was a successful non-politician in the private sector. To a non-politician, measures of success our progress, our results, our deliverables. You have to have product. If Washington were a real estate developer, there'd be a hole in the ground and wires hanging.
Well, they'd be fired from their job.
You know, that's right. They'd be fired from the job. So I think Washington does not yet understand Trump's speed, and it will never really keep pace with the breakneck speed and accomplishments that he is demanding of this broken system. Again, it's his agenda. If Democrats and Republicans want to come forward and support his agenda, then that's great. But bipartisanship should be a means. The goal is a vehicle.
Yeah, so often we forget that. Kellyanne, a busy week ahead. We appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thanks, Kellyanne.
Thank you so much. Good day.
All right, well, up next, protests erupting in St. Louis for a second straight night, and Missouri Governor Eric Greitens sending a message to protesters. Our own Griff Jenkins goes one-on-one with that governor next. Stick around.
From people in this protest.
We're back with a Fox News Alert. Violent protests breaking out for a second straight night in St. Louis.
Demonstrators armed with their own rifles rallying against an ex-officer's acquittal in the death of a black man. Police arresting 9 people during the unruly night.
Griff Jenkins joins us live in the St. Louis suburb of University City. Griff, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, we're here in University City in the Del Mar. Louis businesses were vandalized last night in the second night of violence. 10 people arrested. You see volunteers, people in the neighborhood cleaning up here, trying to help people put things back together. We caught up with Governor Eric Greitens yesterday, who had a very stern message for these would-be looters and vandals. Take a listen.
They're proactively engaged. When people decided to vandalize vehicles, they were arrested. When they assaulted our law enforcement officers, they were arrested. You know, in the past, Griff, we've had leaders who wanted to give people a safe space to loot and to burn. Right now in Missouri, if you loot, the only safe space you're going to have is in a jail cell. We've been incredibly clear. If you're out there to peacefully protest, we will protect you. But if you're going to riot, we're going to cuff you. You assault one of our law enforcement officers, we are going to arrest you. Violence and vandalism is not protest. It is a crime. And our message to anybody who's going to come to the state and think that they're going to burn, that they're going to loot here, is they need to know that they're going to get thrown in jail. Our law enforcement officers are going out on the front lines, operating with tremendous restraint. We've got your back. We want our law enforcement officers to know we've got their back, that we appreciate them. We appreciate their service, their sacrifice, and the other thing that we say to them, we let them know that we appreciate their families. You know, Griff, these men and women are out here doing a difficult job, putting their lives on the line to protect all of us, and we want their families to know how much we appreciate and support them as well.
These businesses are small-owned mom-and-pop businesses here, costing thousands of dollars, guys. I talked to one of the residents, said that this area is actually really the melting pot of St. Louis. It's a bit of an irony that they've decided to trash a community which is so supportive of their right to protest. There are more protests scheduled today at 3 p.m. down at the police headquarters. We'll see what today brings. Guys?
It never makes sense.
Yeah,
it happens all the time.
town.
Never makes sense.
Thank you,
Pointing out
Griff.
the irony. Thanks, Griff. Appreciate it. Well, healthcare problems at the VA, they are far from over. A stunning new report says the agency is only filling half of its medical appointments, and it only gets worse from there.
Plus, the left slamming President Trump's marriage, but attacks anyone who goes after Bill and Hillary Clinton. Why the double standard here? Rachel Campos Duffy here to discuss. She's got some thoughts on this one. That's next.
Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. This I tell you, brother.
23 minutes after the hour now, here are some headlines and a Fox News alert. A manhunt intensifying this morning after a security guard is shot. Police say 3 suspects busted into an Illinois casino with assault rifles, stealing cash from the main floor. Customers stampeding out, running for safety. The unarmed security guard shot during the robbery. He was taken to a hospital where he is in stable condition right now. And Key West will no longer look like a ghost town. The island city opening back up earlier this morning for business owners and homeowners to assess the damage left by Hurricane Irma. But those heading there are being warned the city still only has limited amounts of fuel, power, and running water. And the scene for a number of those individuals is going to be really, really tough to take when they get there. Abby?
Yeah, that's going to be emotional. And thank you, Todd. Well, it seems there is a double standard in the mainstream media when it comes to marriage. Last week, this happened when Hillary Clinton joined the ladies on The View.
Many Republicans have been very critical of your staying in your marriage. What is your response? Why did you stay in your marriage?
I hear that. People say, oh, they have an arrangement. Yeah, it's called a marriage. And I think it's time that we really try to support people in their decisions and give them more understanding and compassion.
And mind their own business.
And to mind their own business.
Mind their own business. So why do they think when it comes to the Trumps and the Pences, their marriages are fair game?
What's their relationship like? So is she suffering from Stockholm syndrome?
She's more of a hostage.
He's got her as like a hostage up in this Trump tower over here. She's like Rapunzel. Let down your hair, Mo.
Sad news for Vice President Mike Pence. Groupies out there. He won't go out to dinner with a woman, we've heard, unless his wife Karen is with him too. And he won't attend any event where booze is served without her either. Now, what is he afraid of?
Self-control. Wow. Joining us with her reaction, Fox News contributor and wife of Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy, Rachel Campos Duffy. She also has guest hosted The View more than 20 times. Rachel, I am really looking forward to your perspective on this. Why not take their own advice in that moment? Stay out of it.
Of course, but first let me address Hillary's comment, because this is classic Clinton revisionism. Women like me were not criticizing Hillary Clinton for forgiving Bill. We were criticizing Hillary for participating in destroying the lives of the women that her husband sexually harassed and in some cases really assaulted. So that was the criticism there. But I find it, of course, classic The View, right? You know, they're willing to, and by the way, what a strange culture we live in. They say don't judge people for adultery, but they're judging Vice President Pence for taking precautionary measures to ensure that there is no adultery. This is the crazy world we live in right now.
You know, you also think about that moment when they were asking Hillary Clinton about her own marriage and the criticism she went through. You know, agree with her or not, she went through her own criticism during all those years with Monica Lewinsky and other women. Sure. She had a real opportunity there to say to those women on The View and to the country, you know what, when it comes to a marriage and when it comes to the First Lady and the wives, we should stay out of that. It didn't seem like she really took that opportunity and made the most of it.
Right. A more gracious Hillary would have said, listen, people should stay out of my marriage. And by the way, you ladies on The View, try and stay out of the marriages of Republican candidates. But, you know, this hypocrisy on the feminist left is so pervasive. I mean, we saw in the protests in January, protests, women's rights protests, it was led by a woman who supports the codification of misogyny, of Sharia law. We saw this week that Judicial Watch actually revealed emails that Hillary Clinton deliberately omitted women's rights issues in a speech in Saudi Arabia. So there's hypocrisy all over the map here, and there is a double standard for the way Republican spouses are treated, Republican candidates are treated. And by the way, Vice President Pence should be applauded. We should be looking at his decision to put his wife first and leave no doubt that she is that their marriage is to be protected. This shouldn't be ridiculed. It should be deeply admired.
So, Rachel, with all your experience on The View, I shouldn't go to those ladies to get advice on my own marriage? Is that what you're saying?
I highly recommend you don't.
I'll go to you to get advice.
Great, by the way.
Oh, you're so. I'll go to you because you've raised 8 incredible kids. You are amazing. Rachel Campus Duffy, go ahead.
You got it. I was just going to say, D.C. is a swamp, and it's a toxic mix of power and egos and cocktails at night, and the Pences and other political spouses who take those steps to protect their marriages are doing absolutely the right thing.
Amen to that. Rachel, good to see you this morning. Have a great Sunday.
You got it. You too.
All right. The entire state of California now one signature away from becoming a sanctuary state, and it is sparking major outrage. This man was killed by an illegal immigrant in California, and his father has a strong message for lawmakers in that state. You don't want to miss it. Plus, did you know that Judge Judy got married to the same man twice? DMC's Harvey Levin just caught up close and personal with her, and he's joining us live in minutes. Plus, it is Oktoberfest on our plaza. Of course, Pete's already outside cooking up some of the traditional food to serve with the beer. Gotta come back for this one. Cheers.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour. I want to make sure we got that exactly. And some big news coming out of the Golden State yesterday. California going full sanctuary state with sweeping immigration bill protections for illegal aliens. What it's going to do, it's going to limit city and state police cooperation with federal immigration officials. And, you know, I'm going to sort of talk a little bit personally about this because I did have the chance to go out with ICE agents, one of my first assignments here at Fox News, and they were so relieved with what the Trump administration had done, which is basically take off the shackles on them to do their job that had been in place from the Obama administration. But each one of them said, we still have tons of problems with the state and local authorities preventing us from doing their jobs. And this is exactly what California is about to codify.
That's going to make it a lot harder, because if you have certain illegal immigrants that commit certain crimes, now under this law, if Jerry Brown signs it, because it's now going to go to his desk for signature, he's already said that he supports it, so it looks like it's going to go through. Now local officials don't have to report it to federal officials, to ICE agents. So we talk about this at the legal level and, you know, what the lawmakers are doing, but it is so personal and it is so real. And Pete, we spoke this morning with Don Rosenberg, whose son was killed by an illegal immigrant. We hear these stories all too often. And we asked him, if you could sit face to face with lawmakers in California, what would you tell them this morning? And here's how he responded.
Responsibility to protect law-abiding citizens, law-abiding legal immigrants, and to some extent even protect those that are here illegally and aren't committing other crimes, and not to protect criminals. And why would you want to do that? Again, they say it will make the... How can you possibly, you know, release criminals back into the community and say it's going to make it safer? It's a con just to get votes, and the public is suffering because of it.
You know, I believe in federalism. Most conservatives do writ large. States and local officials are better at making decisions than federal officials usually. But states don't get to ignore federal law. If you break laws, you should be reported to the feds if you're here illegally and sent back to where you came from, because being in this country is a privilege. Citizenship is a privilege. If you don't have it and you're here, you shouldn't be here. And if you're here and you commit a crime, you certainly shouldn't be here. The state of California is making its own decision today, and I think a lot of citizens of California are probably rethinking, maybe I just move over to Texas, maybe to a state that isn't a sanctuary state, because I want to live, I believe in the rule of law. It would be very interesting to see how this plays out and how it could be challenged in court, and whether Congress steps up, right? Because Congress could step up and defund a lot of these sanctuary cities or sanctuary states. Easier to do that than an executive order. Be very interesting to see where this goes.
We had a guest on our show a few weeks ago who did just that. He moved his entire family from California to Texas. He said, I couldn't live there anymore.
Peace out. No Hollywood, and I don't have to pay taxes.
And you also get a lot more for your money than in Texas.
And the Second Amendment actually exists in Texas.
All right. We do have some other headlines we're following this morning. Special Counselor Robert Mueller picking yet another Clinton-Obama donor to work on his team of investigators. That is according to Politico. Kyle Freeney has been identified as the 17th attorney for Mueller's team investigating possible Russian collusion involved in the Trump campaign. According to FEC documents, Freeney donated to the Democratic nominee in each of the past 3 presidential elections. President Trump has criticized the Mueller team over its Democrat-heavy roster. And new internal VA data now revealing the agency is only filing half of its medical appointments as veterans wait weeks to schedule an appointment. The documents show between July and now, the VA used just over 51% of the appointments available across its healthcare system. This as more than 184,000 veterans are waiting longer than 30 days just for an appointment. Despite that report, the VA says its wait times have improved over the last few years. And the teacher who kicked 2 kids out of class for wearing Make America Great Again t-shirts is now defending her actions after this video went viral.
You cannot wear a swastika to school. You cannot use the slogan.
Lynn Orletsky heard comparing the pro-Trump t-shirts to swastikas. Orletsky now justifying her actions, saying the students wore the shirts shortly after violence in Charlottesville, where she says many hate groups hijacked the slogan.
Again, it wasn't political at all. I've been bullied. I've had literally hundreds of hate mail.
Well, Georgia's Rivera Ridge High School sent out a letter to parents apologizing for that teacher's actions. Those are some headlines we're following. And turning now to some extreme weather where 3 storms are brewing in the Atlantic. Jose, Maria, and Lee. Jose could threaten the East Coast early next week. Adam Kloss is here with what we can expect. What a hurricane season. It is not over yet, Adam.
Yeah, it's already been really active, staying active here in the next several days, several weeks even. Here's what we're looking out there right now. Still a Hurricane Jose, Tropical Storm Maria, Tropical Storm Lee, way off back into the Atlantic. The closest to us, Jose, so that's what we'll begin with. There it is. Currently winds right around 80 miles an hour, running right up the East Coast. There's your East Coast heading to the north. Good news with this one, at least all our current projections are, it makes a sharp turn back out to sea. But this is the cone of uncertainty. It doesn't mean it won't brush right up against the East Coast. It's looking more and more like a rain event, and perhaps some very choppy seas out along the coast as well. We're already beginning to look at areas where we've got a rip current threat stretching all the way from the mid-Atlantic all the way up into the northeast, Nantucket included, which means you're heading out to the beaches knee-high, too high for those. A big one we're also paying attention to, this is currently Maria. but that's going to be running up to a Category 3 storm. So this is going to be a big one, a hurricane before we know it, running over many of the Caribbean islands. It's going to be a busy day, a busy next couple of days in the coming weeks. Guys?
I got nothing. Maria, I have a very serious question about tax reform.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hey, Oktoberfest.
Really good answer.
Oktoberfest kicked off in Munich, Germany yesterday, and today we have some awesomeness in store. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We have our own celebration. It is Oktoberfest on the plaza. And to join us, our friends over there strolling the teleprompter, we're joined by Marco Santamoro, General Manager of Polaner Brewhouse, and Chef Thomas Slivovsky, Executive Chef at Polaner Brewhouse NYC. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for allowing us to dress up like this on national TV.
Yeah. It's a good look.
It is
awesome. Give us the tradition, though, behind all of this. Very simple. These are actually working pants, so it's absolutely your work, and you're working, so these are totally appropriate to wear.
Oh, we're working, all right.
We're all working.
Yeah. I don't really know. So what is it, again, Oktoberfest? Give us the tradition behind it one more time.
It started as a wedding ceremony. It was in 1810. Prince Ludwig and Theresia from Saxony got married, and the wedding was so great that they decided to do a big festival, and the prince said, make a special beer for my wedding. And there was so much beer that they celebrated for 14 days.
14-day That's like Pete's life every single day of the year.
Yeah, just why not keep partying?
What makes the beer so good?
Ooh, this is a couple secrets go in there, but actually it's over years you get better and better and better what you do, and almost 400 years of brewing beer, I think they figured out how to make a beer taste really, really good.
Now, Pete hasn't eaten in 5 minutes, so we need to start talking about the food, otherwise bad things happen. What do we have over here at the grill?
Some too. Come on.
I mean, yeah, it looks good.
What do we got here,
Over
Chef?
here we have some Bavarian meatballs. In Munich they're called Fleischpflanzer.
Bavarian meat.
No, it's so good. Except doesn't have any shame. And what else do we have?
Bavarian meat?
We have some Wiesenhändel, roasted chicken.
Okay.
Some Polaner sausage. It's dry aged beef with cheddar cheese.
Ooh.
There's some Polaner dark beer inside, and they're house smoked.
The only thing that makes sausage better is cheese in the middle of it.
Exactly.
And beer, and beer.
And we also have the pretzels. Let's not forget about the pretzels.
Pretzels and some good brats.
What is the secret to a great sausage? I was in Regensburg, Germany, and had some guy under a bridge sold me sausage. It's the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. Like, how do you do it right?
You gotta have the perfect recipe.
What's the key to the
Perfect
recipe?
seasoning, the right amount of salt, right amount of ginger. Everybody gives their own spice to it.
Pete, they're not
Everybody
giving
has
us.
their own secrets.
They're not going to give us a secret
They're
on
not
national
giving us
television?
secrets on beer or sausage.
Maria and I are so flummoxed by the fact you bought sausage from some dude under a bridge.
Under a bridge in Regensburg.
There you go, Maria.
It's like the local establishment. The guys told me that's where you go to get the best sausage. Secret recipe didn't tell me what was in it.
And ginger?
Maybe it's the bridge.
Ginger.
It's the what? It's the bridge?
Maybe it's the bridge.
A lot of tradition in Europe.
The bridge is 900 years old, by the way.
Ginger on meat.
You may be asking, why is Maria here? It's because Maria is going to come on after this commercial break and talk to us a little bit more actually about tax reform and things like that. We're going to get to it, Maria.
You have more
But
ginger.
first,
We'll connect the dots.
But first, we're going to have the band take. Guys, one more time. Guys. 45 minutes after the hour now, and just weeks ago, critics were declaring tax reform's agenda doomed to fail. But now, some economic experts say, not so fast, my friend, predicting the president may actually be closer than ever to pushing his plan through.
Here to weigh in, Sunday Morning Futures host Maria Bartiromo. Maybe they just put a little ginger in it. It'll spice it up and it'll make it pass.
Bingo! We were just saying
talking
that
about
ginger in the meat downstairs on the barbecue. No, I think that we are getting close. I really do. Next week, the House is going to come out with a list of priorities. I'm not sure what that list will say and how it will be different than what we got back in April, which was the white paper on tax reform. But certainly we are going to see tax cuts. It seems that the president has been pushing so aggressively. We're going to speak with the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady today. Right. And what I want to ask Kevin Brady is, what are we going to learn next week when they are going to come out with this principal list that we don't already know? I know that there's agreement on cutting the corporate rate, agreement on making it attractive for businesses to bring the $3 trillion they have overseas back here. But what does it mean on the individual side? The president now has been saying it's not going to do, he's not concerned about the highest earners, so we'll see what the tax plan look like. I do think we're going to get it, though.
Excuse me for being out of breath because I literally ran Oktoberfest and ditched the lederhosen. But when we go to these diners and we talk to the people about tax reform, there's one phrase that they consistently use. When are we going to get the postcard? That analogy to you should be able to do your taxes on a postcard, not the behemoth we have currently.
That's true. I mean, simplicity is one of the goals here. So you're talking about corporate tax reform and you're talking about individual tax reform. On the individual side, simplicity is very important. That is taking the number of brackets, currently it's 7 brackets, down to 3 brackets. So what will that mean? What are the differences in terms of income levels? That's what we're going to find out from Kevin Brady today. But definitely simplicity is one of the goals. Another goal in terms of the individual rate is to really have a rate that's substantial, a cut for the middle class. So again, we have to see what is rich, Abby. We were talking like what the level is in terms of higher taxes. And the last dollar of the highest earner is $131,000. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound rich to me in terms of not seeing a tax cut, $131,000. That's your school teacher. That's your fireman. So this is going to be really important to see what the details are in terms of who is the highest earner.
Well, speaking of money, you also have Steve Forbes on this morning. What are you going to ask him?
Steve Forbes as well. He's really knee-deep in the whole tax discussion. So we're going to talk with him about that. We're going to talk about DACA as well. Plus, of course, we're also talking with Senator...
Would have been amazing, I think, if they went with Mr. Forbes' tax plan decades ago, but alas, it's not there. Maria.
I'm sure he would say the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, as always, for being here, and thanks for dealing with me completely out of breath.
Thank you. Come join us all the time.
Thanks.
All right, did you know that Judge Judy got married to the same man 2 times? TMZ's Harvey Levin just caught up, got close and personal with her, and he's joining us live to tell us more about that and his new show debuting tonight.
TMZ's Harvey Levin getting up close and personal with celebs for a new series debuting tonight right here on the Fox News Channel.
For the premiere, he sits down with Judge Judy, America's judge. Watch this.
I don't feel as if anything that happened to me in my life was sidetracked because I was a woman.
You a feminist?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know what that means. I actually don't know what that means. Do I want equal pay with men? Absolutely not.
I literally want to watch the rest of that so much I'm going to be tuning in tonight. The new show is called Objectified, and the TMZ founder and the host of Objectified, Harvey Levin, joins us this morning from Los Angeles. Thank you very much for getting up early with us, sir. Tell us where this concept came from, this new program that will be on the Fox News Channel tonight.
Okay, well, first of all, to set the record straight, unfortunately for me. That said, I'll tell you what the idea, where it came from. A realtor called me up. I was thinking of I love autobiographies and biographies, and I wanted to do a show about the life stories of really interesting people, but I didn't want to sit in a sofa and do it because it's been done that way. And so a realtor called me up one day and said, you know, you should look at Steven Spielberg's house one day, because it's amazing. He's lived there for like 40 years, and he's thinking of selling it. This was a house in Malibu. And he said, you walk through it, and it's got like everything in his life. It's got, you know, from Jaws and everything. And I thought, well, that's the way to tell a story. What you do is you divide somebody's life up into 7 chapters, and the chapters will vary from person to person. Each chapter is represented by an object that person chose to keep over the years. They choose the object, and it gets you into the story, into the period, into why it was significant, and the lessons they learn along the way. And it makes it where they're more in control, they're more invested. And I think what we ended up getting is some very intimate conversations where even they were surprised about how things connected in their life.
Yeah, I love this concept. I think it opens up, as you said, a whole new world from people that were so fascinated by. Just from the beginning of the segment, married twice to the very same man. Take a look at this clip.
So there was a rough patch here when you and Jerry divorced.
I just had to come to terms with the fact that men of that generation are different. They expect, even if they have no right, they expect to be taken care of and catered to.
So you divorced him, and then you remarried him.
I did. I missed him, and I really found out, and this is not to denigrate your species, actually, most men are alike. Mine had hair.
Harvey, I kind of love this one.
I think she's right.
Well, I got to tell you something, though. That's just a little peek into the two different Judge Judys. On the one hand, what you know is she's like a fiercely independent woman, incredibly smart, doesn't suffer fools. On the other side, and we get into this a lot, this is a woman who believes women are nurturers by nature. She is not a feminist. She needs to be married. She needs a man. She wants to fuss over a man. She excuses men who don't pull their weight in a relationship. And it's these two different people, how they come together in one, and we talk about it.
It's truly incredible. So the new season is Objectified. It premieres on the Fox News channel tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just quickly, who else is going to be part of the series?
I saw Shaq.
I mean, we have Prime Minister Netanyahu from Israel, Tyler Perry, Mark Cuban, who, by the way, gets very, very specific with me about whether he might run for president. We have Hulk Hogan, and he's never talked about the Gawker trial until now. Really, really interesting. Simon Cowell, Martha Stewart, Shaq, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, it is. I'm so excited about this.
I mean, Harvey, you're selling the most interesting thing in the world, which is people and their stories. So fascinating. We'll be watching tonight. Thanks a lot, Harvey.
More Fox and Friends coming up next.